Hello, everyone. Welcome to Politics Today, live on Channels Television. I'm Sean Kimbale in Abuja. Tonight, our focus is on the Buhari government's budget, the spending, and of course, what has become a major agenda of this government, the development plan. What does that mean? What is captured in that? Just yesterday, we heard about the approval of some new borrowing from the government. How sustainable are some of these borrowings? Tonight, our guest is the Minister of Finance, but we'll be talking to her in a short while. Stay with us, everyone. But first, let's tell you about some of your political roundup stories.
Some ex-Niger Delta agitators who claim to be part of the third phase of the presidential amnesty program are protesting in Abuja against what they described as the non-inclusion of their members in the amnesty program. The protesters who gathered at the Unity Fountain chanted solidarity songs and displayed placards with inscriptions alleging exclusion and marginalization by the Presidential Amnesty Office. However, when contacted, the Presidential Amnesty Office declined comment on the allegation. Pensioners under the umbrella of the Ogun local government pensioners have held a peaceful protest in Abeokuta, the state capital, to demand better welfare packages, payment of outstanding gratuity and pensions. The senior citizens, in their numbers, mobilized from different local government areas of the state, blocked the gate leading to the state secretariat to press home their demands. While accusing the state government of insensitivity as backlogs of gratuities remain unpaid since 2011, they however demanded the resuscitation of the Bureau of Local Government Pensions to handle their demands.
I retired in the year 2011. Up to now, I didn't receive my gratuity.
The Benue State government has signed 2 laws enabling it to create the State Account Allocation Committee, which will be responsible for disbursement of receipts from the federal government to the executive, legislative, and judicial arms of government, thereby implementing full financial autonomy to both the legislature and judiciary. The Commissioner of Justice and Attorney General of Benue State, Mr. Marco Gusa, while briefing journalists on Thursday in Makurdi, says Governor Samuel Otom's assent to the laws is to ensure good working relationship among all arms of government in the state.
Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us. Let's tell you, there's some names are now coming up, and we're hearing some news on the siege that happened on the home of the Justice of the Supreme Court, Justice Mary Odili. Today, 14 persons were paraded by the police in connection with the siege on the Supreme Court Justice's apartment in Abuja. Some of the suspects include a fake chief superintendent of police, Lawrence Ajodo, a contributing editor with one of the national dailies, Stanley Nkwazama, an Islamic scholar. The first public relations officer, Frank Kumba, paraded the suspects in Abuja and explained that the arrest followed a strict investigation by the police. Take a listen to him.
A total of 14 suspects are here with us today. 7 are still at large, and detectives are working around the clock to round up the remaining suspects who are either directly or indirectly linked with this very serious offense. In the course of our investigations, we discovered that the man who was acclaimed to be a chief superintendent of police, Lawrence Ajodo, is in fact not a police officer. We discovered that although the team, this syndicate actually obtained a search warrant, that particular search warrant was obtained based on false representations that were made. We are working around the clock to make sure the remaining suspects now at large are arrested. We have also officially reached out to other agencies whose personnel have been in any way or in any form implicated in this crime.
Meanwhile, the Attorney General of the Federation and the Minister of Justice, Mr. Abubakar Malami, has distanced himself from a suspect arrested over the siege on Justice Mary Odili's home. The suspect, Lawrence Ajado, was paraded by the police alongside 13 others. He claimed to work as a consultant for the office of the AGF. However, the police said their investigations revealed that there is no involvement at all of the officials of the office of the Attorney General in the raid. All right, then, let's get talking about our conversation for tonight. I told you earlier, our special guest on the program tonight is the Honorable Minister for Finance, and our conversation will be around what happened yesterday. Only yesterday, the Senate approved President Buhari's external borrowing plan, and also approved by the Senate was a grant component of $125 million US. The Buhari government has also come up with several other plans before now on how to cushion the effect of the dwindling revenue in the last few years. But the big question is, there was a development yesterday where the Federal Executive Council approved a national development plan of 2021 to 2025 with 348 trillion investment. What does this mean? Let's speak with the Honorable Minister for Finance, Budget and National Planning, Ms. Zainab Ahmed. Thank you so much for joining us, Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Sean, for inviting me.
First and foremost, I think we should start. There are a few things that happened yesterday. The approval of the borrowing plan and, of course, the development plan. First and foremost, the development plan. What does this mean?
So the development plan is a medium-term plan that has been approved yesterday to be the successor of the Nigeria Economic Recovery and Growth Plan, the ERGP 2017 to 2020. As it is, the ERGP had expired since December last year. So we've been working on two sets of plans. So there's a Nigeria Agenda 2050, which is a longer-term plan, but we had to do the medium-term plan to be able to have a plan that we can work with that guides government actions over the next 5 years. The objective of the plan, of course, is to make sure we have a plan that is truly national. Some of the criticisms that we got from the ERGP was that it was a federal government plan. So we went out of our way this time to make sure that this is truly a national plan. So we had in the steering committee that was approved by the president, Mr. Atedo Peter Side as a chair, and I am a co-chair, so there's a private sector strongly represented. But we also have representatives of governors representing 6 zones. We had Algon, president, as a member. We even have representatives of the 3 major political parties, or let me say 3 political parties, the APC, the PDP, and APGA represented. We have representatives of youth, women and persons with disability, Manufacturers Association, NASIMA. It was a wide mix that we went out of our way to do to make sure that it's not a federal government plan, but it's a national plan that every citizen will own and will track and monitor and also contribute their own quota.
So, I mean, it's good that a lot of people, experts have mentioned this. They said, look, it would be good for the nation to have a plan. Where are we going in the next 5 years? Yeah. What do we want to achieve in the next 10 years? But what you've stated now would obviously outlive this administration. The major issue about policy of government is sustainability and the effectiveness of it. What assurance can you give Nigerians that all of this plan is not just going to be bookwork, it's also going to be practical, that we can see right on the ground?
So let me say, Sean, that regardless of whatever government comes into power after this present administration, the government will still be seeking to continue to strengthen the diversification of the Nigerian economy. And that's one of the major objectives of the plan. We sought to provide a strong foundation for a concentric, diversified economy. Why concentric, diversified? Because already the Nigerian economy is diversified. is truly diversified, but we want to deepen that diversification. So any government that comes must be doing that, because that is what the electorate also will be asking for. And secondly, we have a major priority to continue to build out critical major infrastructure, so roads, water, power, social development infrastructure like schools and hospitals. Every government must continue to do that. We also have in the plan a solid framework that is designed to enhance the capacities of our security agencies and also ensure good governance, transparency, and accountability. And finally, we also provide clearly in the plan the process to have a vibrant education and a health sector to support the human capital development of our citizens. So those are the major, broad objectives of the plan.
And I'd like to take you up on this. I mean, this may not be the fault of yourself or, I mean, your predecessor or even the government before now. It's become a national disaster of some sort. There was a time in this country, there was a very strong regional economic competition. I mean, the northern region, some part of the northern region of the country can be specifically known for a major economic output into the major national output. The part of the southern part of the country known for certain economic identity. But no one can specifically say this is even what Nigeria as a nation is known for. For example, there were days that cocoa was a very, very good product that we're known for. But now, a lot of people will take cocoa out of this country and import chocolate and the rest. So the question is that in the policy that you are framing or putting together, what will Nigeria be known for?
Nigeria will be known for export of agricultural products. So whether we are known for just cocoa or rice or rubber, Nigeria's bid is to be able to export as much agricultural produce as possible within the region. Why? Because we have the opportunity. The opportunity that we have now is the AFCFTA, the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, that opens up Africa as a whole single market. And the Nigerian market is the biggest market in the whole of the African region. So if we don't produce goods for exports, we'll end up having the rough end of this treaty that we signed into. So we must continue to concentrate on improving agricultural production, to improve the productivity. Agriculture today provides up to 50% of the employment in this country. So not only do we need it to feed ourselves, we also need it to create jobs, to create wealth in terms of small, medium enterprises. And we are looking at expanding and improving the whole of the agricultural value chain. So beyond subsisting agriculture, we must move to agribusiness. We must also strengthen the market end of the agricultural value chain, have commodity markets so that our goods are tradable based on international standards.
Because easily, a few countries on the African continent come to mind. Cote d'Ivoire, cocoa. Ethiopia, sesame. You can also talk about cocoa in these countries. Nigeria live in the past glory in this respect. So when you say agriculture product, you mentioned earlier that Nigeria economy is diversified. Some people would disagree with you on that.
Well, the numbers didn't say so. The numbers didn't say so. When you have the oil and gas sector contributing less than 10%, and 90% of the GDP of the Nigerian economy is non-oil sector, and the economy is truly diversified. Like I said, what we seek to do is to strengthen that diversification. So each of the major sectors, including agriculture, but also manufacturing, services, the digital economy, ICT and communications, they're very light. The financial services sector in Nigeria is a very significant sector. So is the communication sector. So we just need to work to deepen the growth that has been happening in this sector, making sure that their growth are expanded to take in more people, put in more people to work, and also be able to multiply wealth.
So if there is one product that, because now that you have specifically told us that this plan should help Nigeria be identified as an producing nation. What particular product would you say Nigeria should be known for within this window?
Well, we have a program that is called the Special Agricultural Processing Zone, which we are working with right now with the African Development Bank. And what that program is doing is creating 6 clusters, one in each of the 6 geopolitical zones. Studies have been done to identify the most competitive products in each sector and concentrate on developing the value chain of this. So there will be soybeans, there's beniseed, there's cocoa, there's groundnuts, there's also rice and maize. Nigeria is one of the largest producers of maize today.
But how much of that comes as foreign exchange?
So the problem is we haven't created the market that would help. We need to develop a very stable and strong commodity market in Nigeria.
Are you working towards that?
There's a commodity exchange that exists, but it's almost comatose. But there's effort right now that is being done to be able to revitalize it with fresh investments going into it, so that with your goods as a farmer put in an approved warehouse, you can trade with receipts of that commodity anywhere in the world.
So I'm trying to get you to commit to Nigerians tonight to say, if you go to Ethiopia, not only are they known locally for their very strong coffee, they're also known outside of the country. Sesame is something they are known for. Cote d'Ivoire, for example. And people can remember the nation for something. Not the oil that we produce, that we have underground, but we cannot even refine in Nigeria. If you can tell Nigerians tonight that within this window that you're talking about, this is one thing that Nigeria would be known for, what would that be?
Well, I don't want to commit to one thing. I want to commit to at least 6 things, so that each of the 6 zones of our country has specialization in one commodity. Why should we do one when we have the capacity to do more?
But we
can do
a lot, but we have not achieved so much.
Because we derailed in the progress of agriculture in this country. We derailed because we found oil, and everybody's attention moved to oil. And the process, we also ignored mining, which used to be a very major export produce, like coal used to be a major export produce in Nigeria, but it's not anymore. So we need to do more to concentrate on providing goods to not just the Nigerian market, but the global market, so that Nigeria also is not anymore dependent on revenues only from oil and gas.
And when you mentioned the issue of mining, Ajaokuta still comes to mind. That is a disaster also.
It is, I agree with you. It's entangled in a legal issue that we're trying to untangle right now. And we've made some very significant advances in terms of negotiations with the parties that were previously, that the asset was previously concessioned to and cancelled in a wrong time, and there has been an international arbitration going on. But we have finished our negotiations. We're talking about settlement now of those negotiations, so we pay them off so that we can get back this asset and either re-privatize it or find the best way to put it to use.
One of the problems in the country that has bedeviled our economic growth has been policy somersault. And so you're bringing very lovely idea of the development plan. But the question is, in fact, we've even seen transition of the same political parties, but they've not been able to keep faith with the policy of the past government. So the question is, how solid is this policy plan going to be? Should the Buhari government leave office? Will it be cast in stone? Would it be a law entity such that nobody can just throw it away? And like you said, we got distracted by oil and we abandoned every other thing.
So let me tell you this. When we did the vision, when Nigeria did the Vision 2020, it sought at that time to legislate that national agenda. But it didn't work out. We're going to try again to see, when we finish the Nigeria Agenda 2050, if we can have it legislated. That will provide some protection. But again, like I said earlier on, we made sure that what we selected as priorities are priorities that will be done by whatever government comes. So somebody might change the name of the plan, but the concentration still has to be to deepen the diversification of the economy, to provide for the welfare of the citizens, to improve on agriculture, to make sure that you improve education and health. So whichever government comes, those are basic priorities that the government must carry, because that's the requirement of the Constitution.
That's correct. So the Anchors Borrower Program, so much money has been spent in that. And one would think that by now, Nigeria should be the biggest or one of the biggest producers of rice, in fact, the exporters of rice in the country. What would you say has been our gain with that kind of program and the kind of money that has been spent into it?
I think the gain is that we became self-sufficient in rice production. We forget that we were importing rice into the country using foreign exchange that could have been used for other things to import rice. So the major benefit of the Anchor Borrower Program is that we're now actually all feeding ourselves with Nigeria rice. And that is a huge achievement. We are a population of 200 million people. If you're not able to feed your people and you depend on imports, what will have happened if we're not able to feed the nation by growing food locally during the lockdown of COVID-19? We'll have had a disaster in terms of being able to feed citizens. So the major achievement of the agricultural policies and is beyond the Anchor Borrower Program of President Muhammadu Buhari is that we have become self-sufficient in rice production, and also we have also reached our target in maize production, and we're still lagging behind in wheat, because we had 3 major products that we committed to become self-sufficient. We have not been able to make it in wheat production, but that is also being looked at this time.
So if you talk about that, one would think that that kind of effort is being put into rice production, the price should reflect it. But if the prices are not reflecting it, the average Nigerian still buy over 30,000 a bag of rice in the market. There's still a lot of smuggling going on in rice, in the rice market in Nigeria.
Unfortunately, there's a lot of distortion. And the distortion is arising from, you've said it, smuggling of goods into the country. We have people, unpatriotic Nigerians, that would bring rice that is poor quality, some of it not even fit for human consumption, and come and dump it on the market, making it problematic for the millers that are processing rice in the country to sell their own healthy, high-quality rice. So this market distortion is not an indication that the supply is short in Nigeria. It's just that the smuggled rice that has come into the Nigerian market, in some cases, they're even getting the rice for free. They rebag it, and they bring it and sell it at a very low price, making it problematic for the made in Nigeria rice in the market. We do hope that with the combined efforts of the Nigerian Customs Service, under the joint and several other agencies that have been put together into a joint patrol team, that we'll be able to address the issue of smuggling, and also for citizens to understand that that imported rice that you're buying is rice that is classified not fit for human consumption in some countries, and we have people that are unpatriotic enough to get it, bring it into our country and sell it for consumption.
And I mean, when you were planning for rice sufficiency, you were looking at the average Nigerian.
Yes.
And they're supposed to be, I mean, this kind of thing should be price reflective. The average Nigerian should be able to buy less for the price, I mean, for that they're getting it before.
So
but rather,
let me tell you some of the things that we were doing. So we didn't want a situation where we're subsidizing food, because you don't want to create another subsidy. We're already battling with first subsidy. We want to exit it, and it's a big problem. So what we're doing is subsidizing, encouraging and supporting the production of fertilizer. The Ministry of Agriculture is working towards bringing quality inputs, and also they have research institutions that are developing quality inputs. Once you get the price of the inputs right and the price of fertilizer right, then it will reduce the high cost. But also we have to correct that distortion, which is smuggling, that is really hurting the market and affecting the citizens.
So what are you doing in that respect?
So I said there's a joint patrol team that is working. with the Nigerian Customs, Police, the DSS, several of the security agencies. They continue to tackle this menace of smuggling. But apart from that, we also need to look at how we can increase the production of the commodity so that everywhere in the country, not just in some parts where the production is predominant, that it is also available.
If we stay on the development plan, we might be talking about, because that's an interest area, especially for those who think about policy and governance. And the development of this country is really very important to a lot of Nigerians who think that we should have gone faster than we are doing right now. Let me take you to the latest borrowing. And the big question will be the debt burden. First and foremost, many Nigerians are now concerned about the rising debt profile of the country. We keep borrowing, but the government keeps telling us, oh, we're borrowing for good reasons. Yesterday, the National Assembly approved yet another tranche of foreign borrowing. Some fear that we may be heading for a debt trap. Can you allay the fears of Nigerians?
So this borrowing that was approved by the National Assembly yesterday is a plan that has been, a request that has been in the National Assembly for since early this year. And the National Assembly has been approving it in batches. So they select some of the projects depending on how their screening is, and then they release. We have made sure that we have a debt management strategy, a medium-term debt management strategy. So this borrowing is not being done by just a fiat. It is encapsulated in a plan. We're guided by the Fiscal Responsibility Act that sets the limit of how much you can borrow at any particular time. We've also structured the borrowing to make sure we have a good balance between domestic borrowing as well as external financial borrowing. So truly, in 2020, because of the COVID-19 crisis, we ended up borrowing more than we had planned, because we had to change all our plans to be able to, the revenue crash, remember? So we had to change our plans to be able to borrow more to contain the pandemic, because if the pandemic was not contained in Nigeria, we will have been in a much bigger problem than the type of recession that we went into. So the borrowing we're doing now is to make sure we're improving critical infrastructure that are necessary for the sustained growth of this economy. If we don't do these investments now, our country will not develop, it will not grow, and we will truly be left behind within the Committee of Nations in the African continent. So we're careful of how we borrow. And I keep saying, and I've said it and I'm saying it again today, that the debt levels in Nigeria is not high. If you consider the size of the Nigerian economy, we have a debt to GDP ratio now that is at 23%. Some of the countries in Africa that you can compare us with have as much as 70% of debt. The problem we have is a revenue problem. And that means all we're doing, at least in the Ministry of Finance, Budget and National Planning, and at least in the Federal Executive Council, is concentrate on increasing revenue and providing space for businesses to be able to work better so that they can produce better and pay more taxes. So we're working at expanding the tax base. We're not looking at increasing taxes, but enhancing the efficiency of the tax collection, enforcing compliance, and also providing incentives where it becomes necessary for businesses to be able to do more. And this is working. We have put in place the Strategic Revenue Growth Initiative since 2019, when I became Minister of Finance. We launched it, and the result of the SRGI today is that as at August this year, our non-oil revenue was 115% of the prorated target for that period. So it shows, and also if you look at our budgets now, the largest revenue contribution is from the non-oil sector. So our revenues have been increasing, but we also have been increasing the size of the budget because government needs to invest more, especially in infrastructure and also to improve the human capital development.
There are a few positions that are directly opposite your submissions tonight in respect of the debt, but we'll take a breather. And when we come back, I try to pose some of these questions so that you can explain to Nigerians what the federal government is doing in that respect. We'll take a break. What exactly is a position of law, the Fiscal Responsibility Act, in respect of our debt profile, the deficit in the budget? What will be the shock absorber that Nigeria is thinking about, considering what happened in the United States yesterday, reports coming out about the inflation rate in that country? Stay with us. The Minister of Finance is still our guest on the program. We'll be right back. Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us on the program. Tonight, we're getting a sense of the spendings of the federal government under the Buhari administration, the borrowings, the plans to take Nigeria out of the doldrum. But how are they achieving this? What are they doing different from other governments? Are they achieving the result that Nigerians want? And is this just effort without the commensurate result? So the Minister of Finance, Budget and Planning is being speaking with us on the program tonight. Thank you so much, Honorable Minister, for your time. When you spoke about the debt ceiling and how much we seek and accommodate compared to other countries, so I'll just take you to what the Fiscal Responsibility Act stipulates. And I'm wondering how you hope to justify that the budget deficit represents well over 3.05% of the estimated GDP, which is above the 3% threshold that is spelled out in the Fiscal Responsibility Act.
Well, the Fiscal Responsibility Act also made a provision that where, in the opinion of the President, that there is a national emergency, that the government can exceed that 3% deficit to GDP ratio. And we exceeded that 3% in 2020 when we had to revise the budget and make additional provisions to enable us cope with the COVID-19 pandemic. And the 2022 budget proposal is now 3.05. And our view and advice to Mr. President is that there is still a national emergency. Apart from the fact that we're still trying to cope with and contain COVID-19 pandemic, we also have a very significant security challenge in the country. That also classifies as an emergency that, and the National Assembly agreed with us because we had consulted them before concluding the budget process for submission to NAS.
So, I mean, that's his justification that the government is giving in that respect. But again, there are other considerations because our economy is not isolated. Dollar play a very major role. Inflation report in the United States is now 6.2%, highest in 20 years. Now, it's imperative that the U.S. were preparing for these they will be making moves in response of this latest report. What is the plan of the federal government for this kind of shock that may come out of the response from the U.S. government?
So what may happen is that the federal, that's the U.S. Central Bank, might begin to increase interest rates. And if that happens, what it means is that global cost of borrowing will begin to go up. And it will affect Nigeria, but we won't be alone in that. But we've also... It
might affect oil prices too.
It might affect oil prices too.
Our production might drop.
Not necessarily, because our production is actually still very low at an OPEC quota of 1.5. It's very low. But we do hope that we'll get a revised OPEC quota that is much higher than what we have right now at this time. So it will affect the Nigerian economy, but it will not. We will not be alone. It will be, so whatever we plan for in the development plan, just as we made assessment of what is happening in the domestic environment and what will happen in the future, we also made an assessment of global happenings that are not within our control. It's not within our control how the market determines the price of crude oil, for example. So if you look at our plan, we actually made the plan based on a $40 oil price. Right now, the dollar oil price is 70, north of 70. And we decided to be very conservative and stay at 40 over the 5-year period. and during a midterm review, we can decide to adjust it either up or down. And so that's kind of the type of shocks that we provided in the plan to enable us. We also have created a special crisis response fund that enables government from the 2020 Finance Act, that enables government put money aside for when there's a shock to enable intervention in the event that there's a shock that happens that is beyond our projections.
I mean, another issue, because as part of saying, I mean, what if our production drops? I mean, is there any plan? Because now oil is a mainstay. Subsidy level also is in the region of about 3 trillion, 20% of, I mean, the shock and the plan to absorb all of these possibilities are what Nigerians might want to get a clarity of tonight. And you mentioned the issue of subsidy. When would that go?
Well, the Petroleum Industry Act, the PIA, that has been passed, actually has a provision that says petroleum products should be deregulated, which means there should be no subsidy of any petroleum product. So in making our plans, at least in the 2020 budget, we assume that this deregulation will take effect from the month of July 2022. And why? Because when the act was passed, the president said there will be a one-year time frame within which implementation will be made, moving from the status quo to the provisions of the PIA. So we assume that by June, we'll be able to exit fuel subsidy, and we have made provisions only up to June in the budget for fuel subsidy. And it is important that we exit this subsidy. It's costing us significant amount of resources that we could have applied for education, for health, for critical infrastructure. It's actually a major waste and a major drain on the economy. Who is benefiting from this subsidy? It is Shehu that has 2 cars. Yeah?
I own one, actually.
It's not. I'm sure you have 2 cars somewhere. But it's Shehu that has 2 cars. It's people that are able to, they have a number of cars that they run. It's not the person that is entering bus from the village to go to the market. That's not the person benefiting. If you look at those large mass transit buses, they run on diesel, and diesel is deregulated. And if you look at trucks that carry goods from farms to market, they run on diesel. What does the common man use for cooking is kerosene. That also is deregulated. So why should we continue to keep subsidy for a product that is only benefiting the people that can actually afford?
You think the pressure is much on this government about this subsidy removal?
There is a lot of pressure for us because it's significant financial pressure.
But of course, you made the promise also that you're going to do that before 2015,
no,
before your government took over.
We did. We removed subsidy in April 2020.
You couldn't sustain it?
It was not sustained because Labour got up to say that at 165, going above 165 was too high. And the Labour was asking for a review of salary. And we cannot afford another review of salary.
So are you prepared for such a scenario again? Because, I mean, can you give
what we're doing now,
Minister,
what we're doing now is we've been negotiating with Labour. We're planning and deploying CNG, which is an alternative for mass transit to PMS. But we also are looking at providing some palliative for a large number of the population in terms of maybe a transport subsidy for a short period like 6 months, or if it's long, maybe 9 months or maximum 12 months. Transport subsidy that will be given directly to individuals. What is constraining us is the issue of registration. The national identity registration process is ongoing, and we want to make sure that this subsidy goes into the hands of the right people, that we can make transfers to people using their BVNs and account number and national identity number, and we know that it has gone to the right people. So that's part of the things that we're negotiating and we're working on. We also are engaging with one of the World Bank in designing a program that will help us to provide that succor, that will provide a buffer for at least minimum 6 months, maximum 12 months, to enable us to make that transition. So
you can't not still tell us tonight when that regime will vanish.
Oh, if you look at what I said earlier on, I said from July 2022 2022, there is no provision for fuel subsidy.
So July 2022, Nigerians
Yes.
should expect that will go.
Yes, but we're trying to see if we can make it earlier. If we're able to get the funding to provide this alternative transport allowance, then we'll be able to make it earlier.
The possibility of end of this year? Maybe.
No, it's
not possible. Maybe sometime
it's not practical. Maybe sometime early next year.
So, I mean, if you look at the loans that you, the borrowings that you're undertaking now, can you tell us what specific capital projects are these loans meant for?
Roads, major roads.
Which of these roads?
So I can tell you the major roads that we're working on now include the Abuja-Kaduna-Kano Road. There's the second Niger Bridge that is going on. There's the East-West Road. There's the Lagos-Ibadan Road. But there are also a lot of major roads in each state. There's a major road that is going on, that is being handled by the Federal Ministry of Works and Federal Ministry of Works. But we also have rail lines, and the directive of the president is to be able to link the whole country with rail lines, at least within a triangular access. So there's the Lagos-Ibadan-Kano rail line that is going on. There's also the Port Harcourt to Maiduguri, which is cutting across about 8 states all the way to Maiduguri. Then there's the coastal rail, which is from Port Harcourt to Lagos. So those are major projects that cost a lot of money. It's in US dollars, but they're funded by the Chinese Exim Bank. So we're able to get very low cost borrowing with tenors of 25 years, with 5-year moratorium, enabling us to deploy this very critical infrastructure now that is vital for the growth of our country. But we also have loans for power projects, for transmission, for deployment of transmission lines to link up, to expand the national grid as it is right now. There are loans for major dam and water irrigation projects that is necessary for the advancement of the agricultural production. So
you look at it, and for those who have also said, look, the business of government is to provide an enabling environment for private sector to thrive. And if you handle government as though it's a private enterprise, then you might be looking at, if you put in a certain amount of money, you should be thinking about what it profits the nation. So the question is, some of these borrowings, when you plow it, the repayment plan, it might not be, there might be a 5-year moratorium, 25-year of, but the question is, are they going to toll some of these roads to get by the funding, or what are the plans on these major roads?
So on roads, yes, there's a toll policy that has been approved, and there's currently a bid process for 14 major roads across the country, a competitive process for tolling of roads. But you see, government is supposed to provide an enabling environment. So the returns to government might not be in Naira and Kobo. When you build a road as government, you don't expect the return to be directly in Naira and Kobo to recover your investment. It's in the improvement in the business environment and in the welfare of the citizens. That is your gain as government. If I have to drive from Abuja to Lokoja, and because the road is so bad, I spend 5 hours, and government does the road and I spend 3 hours instead, 2 hours, is savings for businesses. It also is savings for lives of, as well of citizens. So when government invests in major infrastructure or in social development projects like schools and hospitals, is not to get returns in terms of Naira and Kobo. It doesn't come directly, but it comes at the end of the day, because the businesses that use these facilities, that grow and expand their businesses, will be paying taxes to the government. The citizens that will be happy that they are well taken care of in terms of education and health will be paying taxes to the government. So it's not, you don't get immediate returns, but it's important that it's done.
Why do you think that some Nigerians are very critical of this government on the borrowing plans and the manner in which the borrowings have come? Do you think that there is a trust issue between the government of the government of Buhari, the Buhari government, and the Nigerian people?
You know what? I think people have a right to be concerned, because at the end of the day, the borrowing is not free. You have to pay for it, and people are right to be concerned. But citizens should be concerned and also should also take up their civic responsibility in monitoring and asking government on how these funds are being used. I would like to be taken up on this particular rail that you said you're going to be building. When is it going to be delivered? And people should check how is the project progressing, so that at the end of the day, we leave this administration will be leaving a very significantly improved infrastructure stock. And it is the future that will vindicate us. Because if we don't do these investments now, they will still have to be done at some time. And the longer that you wait to do an investment, the more expensive it becomes for you.
Some Nigerians, for example, that man with the small generator, popularly called I Pass My Neighbor, that is watching this program right now, and who does not have electricity to run its television and watching us right now, or who barely are able to charge his telephone and but little megabyte and watching us right now, who is incensed by the price of food and commodities in the market. And they're very aggrieved about the fact that last few years, the prices of food and commodities in the market were not up to this, and they believe that this government is not doing as much as they wanted, and they are pained because they feel it's a burden on them. How do you explain to them? Because when you now say, oh, let them take you on what you have done, they ask you, is our lives better than you met us?
Well, I sympathize with the citizens. The president is pained by the hardship that citizens undertake, especially in terms of food prices. But when you look at why food prices are high, there are several consequential reasons, but one of the major reasons is also the cost of transportation. The cost of transportation of moving goods from farms to markets. So when you build a road that is good, and you are able to easily and very quickly move your goods to market, it reduces that cost, because the farmer will have to apply that cost in his own recovery effort. And also, when you are able to provide schools and healthcare facilities, primary healthcare facilities, and the citizen is not spending out of pocket to be able to take care of a health challenge for a family member, that is a benefit for the citizen. So these things are hard now because these investments have not been done the way we were supposed to have done them. And we're doing them now. So it's like we're not doing a band-aid treatment, because we could just do something superficial. What we're trying to do is to provide foundational infrastructure that the country will use to grow on. It's difficult now, but the benefits will be seen very much later, in the medium to long term.
So because I give some of the practical scenarios, and this analogy I'll give is like you're telling your children, we're building houses so that your future might be secured under a well-protected environment. But for now, you have to go hungry. Is that what you're telling Nigerians?
Nigerians are not going to go hungry.
But Nigerians are hungry right now.
We're encouraging.
Many of them are hungry. They cannot afford food on their tables.
We're encouraging Nigerians to also grow food even within their homes. We have to be able to do these investments now. Otherwise, where we'll find ourselves in the next couple of years will be several times worse than where we are right now. It's important to do these things at this time.
You think it's right for some Nigerians to be disappointed in your government?
It is not right for any Nigerian to suffer. But will the government be able to solve everything overnight? No. But does the government have a responsibility to make sure that they provide foundational infrastructure to make sure that the country grows on a sustained basis? Yes.
Do you have a feeling that maybe in some ways this government has failed Nigerians?
I think this government has been unfairly assessed and unfairly treated. The government of President Muhammadu Buhari has done extremely well. If you look at the growth indicators of the country, they are all positive. Things are improving. It's just that people want to see improvements like between today and tomorrow. It doesn't work like that.
There'll be some things that are overshadowing the
because
performance, isn't it?
the degradation also didn't happen overnight. Where we are right now, the degradation didn't happen overnight. It was a process. So the improvement also is a process. It is sad that some people are suffering, but we really need to do what we have to do now so that everybody will have relief in the medium term and long term.
Do you have access to the recovered loots?
Yes, these recovered loot sit in the in special recovery accounts that are open in the central bank, and we access them only when the legal process confirms that there is a portion that is not encumbered and that it is cleared. So once we have that advice, so it will come from either the Ministry of Justice or one of the anti-corruption agencies. That amount is now moved from the special recovery account to the consolidated revenue funds, where we can use it either for overhead expenditure or capital.
On the issue of this tax war between states and the federal government, how do you suppose that this could be better resolved? For some who have said a political solution should be looked at. Is the federal government trying to think about that option?
Okay, so I have to do this carefully because there are issues in court, and I'm not supposed to be talking about issues in court, but I do hope that this problem can be solved by sitting on the table, not on the pages of a newspaper, not disagreements in court, because it is possible to solve it on the table.
Political solution?
Political solution.
Are you reaching out to some of these governors?
There's a lot of efforts going on right now.
Have you met any of them?
There's a lot of efforts going on right now.
Between your office and the governors, or at the level of the neck?
I said I didn't want to discuss it because it is in courts.
But
so I have to be careful.
Hopeful for a possible
yes,
political
there
solution?
will be a positive political solution.
An out-of-court settlement?
We are working towards an out-of-court solution.
Perhaps on a final note, the sale of national asset, because one thing that you've said frankly, and Nigerians may not forget in a hurry, is when you said that we have a problem of revenue. So there were ideas of sale of national asset. Is this government still thinking in that respect?
So there's a privatization process going on. There's the National Council on Privatization that is chaired by His Excellency the Vice President, and an agency that is responsible for privatization. Yes, some national assets are being sold, but the major reason why we're selling national assets is not to raise revenue. It is to be able to transform those investments into performing assets. What's the point of having an asset that you have invested in that is not performing? If you sell it to a private sector company that is able to run the business better, then the economy is better for it. So the reason for privatization is not just to fund the budget, is to turn non-performing assets into high-performing assets.
There are other areas I would have loved to take you to, but it's been about an hour of some very fruitful conversation, I guess. Some moments frank, because I know the kind of person you are. You like to frankly say your mind, and honestly too. But one thing that is very critical is also the synergy between the fiscal policy of government and the monetary policy. There's been some discrepancy there. And the VP was taking up on that, and he spoke his mind on how to resolve this issue. Is that the same position that you hold?
Well, I would say that myself and the central bank governor have been working closely together, but there is still a wide gap that we need to bridge. So we talk to ourselves quite frequently on several issues, whether it is fiscal or monetary, and there are gaps, and I have an opinion on one thing, he has a different opinion, so we have our differences, but we still continue to work together. When we went out to raise the Eurobond, we went out together. We engaged the investing public together. We went out to raise $3 billion US dollars and ended up having expression of interest of up to about 12.2 billion US dollars. That shows you that there's coordination, in the effort between the fiscal and monetary authority, and there's a lot of opportunities, and that the external community is seeing those opportunities better than people that are inside, inside the country.
Honorable Minister, thank you so much for your time. I think you should do this marathon so that Nigerians will know what you are doing and be able to appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming tonight.
Thank you very much for inviting. Thank you.
Well, that's our show tonight, everyone. Many thanks for watching. I'm Sean Kimberley. Bye for now.